Topspeedchannelturkiye'nin bu haftaki konuğu yine Superbike'den ve MotoGP'den tanıdığımız bir isim. Şu anda Ducati ile yarışıyor. Chaz Davies karşımızda. Welcome to my place, Chaz.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Obviously, like everybody else, this situation's a bit unexpected, and I mean we're all in the same situation. But yeah, apart from that, I'm okay. I'm trying to stay busy, trying to just stay active, both with the body and also the mind in different projects, and trying not to get too bored is the goal at the moment.
So I can see you are at your man's cave. So you have your bikes, your dirt bikes, and I see a multi there, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So behind me here, I have got the Multistrada Enduro, which I got a couple of years ago because I live in Andorra, which is in the middle of the mountains, and there's a lot of beautiful trails through the Pyrenees into the French Pyrenees and also on the Spanish side. So yeah, here's just a paradise for that kind of bike. So I decided, everybody thinks when you race something like the Panigale that you should have a Panigale on the road, but for me it's more the opposite. I want flat handlebars, relaxed riding position, nobody with the lap time checking. So yeah, for me the perfect choice for where I live is the multi, and then obviously I have other training bikes like Supermoto, motocross, dirt track.
So many riders, I believe, they don't ride on the streets. They are just riding on the tracks, and they don't like to ride on the streets. So I see that you are very lucky about that, because you have beautiful roads and Andorra, and also you are going to market with the bike, or you are using your car?
Yeah, mostly using the car just for convenience, also with my wife and the space to store shopping or whatever. But a lot of times, actually, I always say to my wife, should we go on the bike? And she's like, no. more often than not. I don't know why. Maybe she doesn't trust me. But no, I love it. I love riding on the road. But I think, like a lot of other riders, I didn't do my license until quite late. So I passed probably about 5 years ago, I think. I got my test, so I was 26, 27 years old.
I remember YouTube video. I saw a YouTube video about your license test. I think it's...
Yeah, exactly. I actually did a road awareness course at the same time with, or a little bit after, with production in the UK to basically raise awareness that it doesn't matter if you're a superbike rider or if you've got the best skills on the road, on the bike. Sometimes on the road there's things that you just can't plan for, and obviously with other vehicles and animals and whatever and different conditions, those are things that it doesn't matter if you're a superbike rider or if it's your first day of riding, that you have to respect the roads and you know, pay attention all the time. So yeah, I did that, and I think that's another reason to have something like the multi is you never get in that position, and you just enjoy riding for the sake of riding and not trying to get too excited.
So what was your instructions idea about you? So what you felt when you wear the jacket with the L?
A little bit embarrassed, to be honest. It felt like I was going back to like the early days of riding on track, when you're just entering like a club race, but you haven't got all the points on your license yet, and you need to wear the yellow jacket so everybody knows to pay attention around you. And it felt a little bit the same, but it was a good experience. You just soak it up, and you know, at the end of the day, I was a novice for riding on the road, so wear the jacket and be seen.
Okay, let's talk about some races now, because our audience, they are very keen about to know your past and your today and your future. But we will talk about the drums, because I know you're a drummer also. That maybe I will ask you a little performance, a little sample of your playing, if you want, if you are okay.
Embarrassing.
I'll also join you with my guitars.
Can I, if I spin this around, you'll see it. Yeah. So as I showed you here, we've got the drum kit, but yeah, I'm not very good, but it's a passion of mine. I really enjoy playing the drums, and especially now, like in this day and age with the internet and with YouTube and everything like that, when I was trying to learn to play the drums 15 years ago, I didn't want to pay £20 for 1 hour of lessons because I didn't have the money to do that, and that's what it cost to learn to play the drums. But now with YouTube and with all the resources that you have online, it's like, I mean, you get all this stuff for free, so just plug in the phone and learn something. So that's, for me, it's a really good mental stimulation while we're in this quarantine, because it's something that I have to focus on. I can think a lot about it and technically try and improve the coordination between my hands and feet. So yeah, work in progress.
So most of riders and drivers, they play the drums because using your both hand and both feet independently can also help your driving.
Yeah, I think so. That separation of right foot, left hand, and vice versa, crossover between hand and feet, right and left, I think is something on the bike which for me comes really natural after so much experience. But with the drums, it's a different type of movement and a different type of thought, but it's so challenging but so satisfying at the same time to disconnect everything, because I think it's one of the hardest things that you can do with coordination is to try and separate every limb of your body. So yeah, it's cool. It's a good challenge.
You started racing very young, age of 8 or 9, I think. And
yeah.
Who was your hero? Who was your idol when you started your career, and also who made you start?
Yeah, for me, growing up, our family was super passionate about racing, and coming from my dad more than anything. He's really passionate about motorcycles in general, and because he built a go-kart circuit. Between him and my mum, they made their business a go-kart circuit. It was a complete total risk. They didn't have the money to do it. They had so much borrowed money from the bank at the time, which was crazy amount of interest that they had to pay on it. But at the end of it all, it worked for them, and they managed to turn it into a business. And it also gave me the platform to start riding, and that was with mini moto. So like some countries it's called pocket bike, but in the UK it's called mini moto. And we started riding with mini moto, and I was aged like 7, I think, when I first tried it. And then so from age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I was racing mini moto in the British Championship. And yeah, that was where it all started, really. There was just some passion in the family, and also the perfect playground to be able to start the career.
And your adventure started at United Kingdom, at your homeland, and you just also you went to AMA Superbike, AMA Super Sport, and you are the first British winning the Daytona 200.
So yeah, I obviously went from the UK. I did a little bit of, not too much racing in the UK after mini moto, and then I went to the World Championship where I raced 125 and 250, and it was a difficult time because at that moment it was there was a big separation between. It wasn't like Moto 3 or Moto 2 now, where all the bikes and all the tires are very close. It was really different back then. So the variation in equipment was huge. And then I got an opportunity to go to America. I'd basically stopped riding, and I was at my father's go-kart circuit washing a go-kart, and I got a phone call from a friend, Jeremy McWilliams, and he said, "Look, there's a guy in America. He runs a small team in America, and he's looking for a rider to do the last race. Are you interested?" And at the time, I was still holding on to the dream of being a GP rider, but in all honesty, it was pretty much dead, because at the time, the money that people were asking was crazy, and also not only that, but the opportunity wasn't ever very good. So I didn't see myself racing in America, and I had never planned to race in America, but the opportunity came to me, and I took it. And I ended up spending 3 years there, and it was basically the foundation of what allowed me to get back to racing on the World Championship, but in super sport and then Superbike. So yeah, those 3 years in America were a lot of fun. I think I was aged like 18 to 22 when I finished racing there, something like that. So it was like proper learning years, both about on the bike and off the bike, and how I enjoyed myself off the bike. You know, I was living in California, and just a sort of life-changing experience in general. And then, yeah, the racing itself was quite mixed. It went okay, but I got enough good results to be able to interest some team managers in Europe. So in the end, I came back to Europe, and yeah, the rest is history.
And you back to Europe to Supersport World Championship, and you started riding it Triumph. It was a new bike for, I believe, for Supersport 600. And never won a race, but he was too close to winning a race at 2010 Imola, when Eugene and Kenan collided, and a fuel pump
last corner.
Yes, and a fuel pump failure and took your victory away. And yes, I know it's so hard to remember this kind of things, but how do you remember that days, and how was your feeling when you saw that they crashed, and maybe you were, because you were in the third position and you could win the race before Michele Piro?
Yeah, well, this was, you say it's hard to remember, and normally a race 10 years ago I would never remember, but I remember that day like it was yesterday, because I felt like I rode well. I put together a good race, but as usual, Eugene was ahead and Kenan was ahead by a little bit. And I was happy, you know. I started the last lap in third place, and I was happy with the podium. And then when I got to the top chicane, the bike started to cut a little bit, and the engine was dying down. I was like, oh, no, something's happening. But I thought at that time, well, maybe I can make it to the finish line, even if it seemed like fuel to me. So then I was being really, really careful, and then the bike just cut out, and I retired from the race. And then obviously I didn't know about anything that was happening ahead of me, and at the time I didn't understand any Italian, but I did understand the word caduto, which is crash. And when I got through the gravel and went to put the bike the other side of the fence, the marshal said, they were like, lavati, Sofuoğlu, caduto. And I was like, what? Crash? And they were like, yeah, they crashed. I said, no. And obviously for me, that was just like, put a knife straight here in my heart, and not only to lose the podium, but then the way to win the race. But at the same time, you never want to win your races for the misfortune of others. So even if that would have been a victory is a victory, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's nice to have a hard battle and beat the guys and not rely on any crashes or mistakes or anything like that. So yeah, it was a really tough day. I was obviously extremely upset, but yeah, it was a day that I will remember forever, I think.
And let's talk about 2016, because 2016 is something different, because in the first part of the season you were good, but in the second part of the season you were perfect. And I remember in an interview that you said I eat too much hamburgers and beer between the first part and the second part in the holiday. But I know it's a good joke. So what was the difference from the first half of the season and the second half? Because the second half you won all the race till the end of the season.
Yeah, easy to say now, but yeah, I mean, 2016 was so far the most successful year that I've had in Superbike, because we won 11 races that year. Most, I think, 8 races at the end of the season. And like you said, we won nearly every race from the summer break until the end of the year, except the wet race in Lausitzring. And anyway, so yeah, we changed the setup a lot in the summer break after some discussion, and I was having a few problems at the early part of the season, and I couldn't do exactly what I wanted to do on the bike, and I was a little bit unable to push and use the benefits of my style to the best possibility. And then we made a big setup change, and it was just working so perfect for the tires that we had at the time, and that bike. The setup was absolutely perfect, and we didn't really have to change anything from there until the end of the season. We played a little bit, but the base of the bike was fantastic, and the lap times that we did then were really hard to get close to. Even now, like, they were really good lap times. And yeah, and unfortunately, obviously, it was too late for the championship. We had too many mistakes in the first part of the season, and lost too many points, but nonetheless we won a lot of races, and had a good end to the season. So yeah, it's good memories.
So that's not the hamburgers and the beer make the difference, huh?
I mean, a little bit.
So how was fighting with Jonathan Rea?
Yeah, well, Johnny, obviously he's been the guy to beat now for the last 5 years, 5-time champion, and he seems to have, since joining that team, he's got a level of confidence and also stability in his situation where he understands exactly where he is and exactly where the limit is, which is, that makes him a difficult person to, not so much a difficult person to beat in one race or two races, but for the full championship, because his consistency is very good, and it seems that he has a lot of feel with the bike, and it allows him just to stay a couple of % under the limit, but still go very fast and not make any mistakes at all. So he basically got into that situation, and he wasn't like that before. He's made a lot more mistakes than that with his the previous bikes that he rode. So it makes him a difficult person to beat, and also I think he's able, because he can stay a little bit under the limit with seemingly a little bit more ease than the other guys, then he can control the race as well, and that puts him in a strong position again in a fight, because he can most of the time he's controlling a lot, has under control his situation. So for sure he's a tough competitor, but I've beat him before, and a few other riders beat him before. He's definitely beatable. It's just the consistency element that everybody needs to improve to reach the level of Kawasaki, really, in general. So they've been a good reference now for a few years. So I think this year there's a lot more riders that are capable of racing with Johnny. And
you raced against Kenan Sofuoğlu in Superbike World Championship, and now you are racing against another Turkish rider, Toprak Razgatlıoğlu. So I want to ask both about both of them. So what do you think about Kenan Sofuoğlu, and what do you think about Toprak Razgatlıoğlu, and how do you see the future of Toprak?
Well, firstly, Kenan, his numbers speak for themselves. Kenan, to watch Kenan ride on when he was at his peak, which was basically every time he got on the bike in Supersport, he was a lot of admiration for Kenan, because he would, it doesn't matter in any condition or any situation, his attitude on the bike and his aggression was always the same, and would be, he was such a force and strong rider, but also really strong here, I think, which is, something that I think was a lot of power that Kenan had in himself. And yeah, obviously his championships and everything were a factor for those reasons. Fantastic rider, a lot of skill, but also mentally very strong, and yeah, impressive guy. I remember my first Supersport race when I had some close racing with Kenan in 2010 in Valencia. It was the first time I was in the fight for the podium. There was me, Eugene, Juan Lascaux, and Kenan. And I think Kenan went on to win the race. He finished first or second, maybe second, maybe Last Cause won the race. But it was the first time fighting with Kenan after watching him for a few years dominate the championship on TV. It was a really proud moment for me because, I mean, Kenan was there in my eyes as the real reference in the super sport class. So it was a good thing for me to see him in reality, to be on his back wheel, to race him a little bit. And yeah, it was, you know, very good for me. And then, yeah, Toprak. Obviously, been following Toprak now for a few years. He's a lot younger than me, but it's clear he's got a lot of skill, a lot of bike feel. I think him and Kenan have got that seems like a really good setup in terms of training, where they rely a lot on working on their bike skills, and it gives them so much feel at the limit when the bike's making some crazy shapes and everything. Those guys have an answer for what the bike wants to do. And yeah, Toprak's got, obviously he's growing as a rider, and he's learning all the time because he's still young, and he's still taking everything in. But not only as a rider, but as a person, Toprak seems like you know, a really down to earth guy from that point of view, and that's always nice to see. Obviously, where everybody wants to beat each other on the track, but away from the track, you get off the bike, and Toprak seems like a different person. You know, he's shy, he's calm, but on the bike, he's a beast. He's not scared to make an aggressive move. And something with Toprak, I think that I see from being on the track with him and everything is that actually, if we can, we like to ride the bike in the same way. So sliding a lot with the rear, being a bit aggressive, late on the brakes, a lot of brake at lean angle. If the bike permits us to do that, that is our preferred way to ride. But I think we're both on bikes now at the moment where maybe the fastest way to go around the circuit is not the spectacular way. You have to take one step back and keep the bike a little bit more calm and not attack too much. But yeah, I always think that if me and Toprak had a bike which we could slide a lot, then you get a really good show. But yeah, so yeah, for sure, Toprak's future is really bright. He's got a lot to look forward to, I think. But obviously, I want to make life as difficult as I can for him. We don't like to give away any gifts in Superbike, even if I think he's a good person. So yeah, I'm looking forward to many battles with him in the future.
I hope the bad days will finish soon, and we will go to streets again. We will back our normal life. And thank you so much, Chaz, for joining us today. After a live with a World Superbike official Instagram account, and you join us here, and maybe we can finish with a little drum session, or maybe a little drum sample if you want, but I don't want to force you.
Come back to me in a few months when I've improved a little bit.
Okay, that's a promise.
Okay, promise. Yeah. Okay, promise.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaz Davies, and hope to see you on the bike again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Ciao. Bye bye.